Ian from RTO here. Welcome to the start of another week and the start of another story. If you're not used to this, we do a story and we go through people that have been in many bands or a band themselves. So we're going to look at a musician this time. We did Gong last few weeks. We're now going to look at guitarist John Mitchell. Now, John Mitchell is more known for Arena, but he's in Lonely Robot, he's in Keno, he's in Frost. He's been in so many. He's also spent some time in It's Bites. So, a great guitarist, all very, what I'd say, prog-based and poppy. Great guitarist, got a very distinctive sound, and I really like his stuff. I've got loads of stuff with John Mitchell in. So we're going to start with the Urbane, and this is a 4-piece band that came from Reading. They weren't around very long. Sort of overlaps with other stuff he was doing, like most of John's work. He's in one band, and he's never just in one band at one time. So they only released 2 albums, and the band was John Mitchell on guitar and vocals, Martin Raggett on the bass guitar, Patrick Darlington on the keyboards, and Paul Cooper on the drums. As I said, they have only released 2 albums under the name The Urbane, and so coming in at number 2 we have the second album called Glitter, and it was released in 2003. So we've got John Mitchell, Patrick Darlington, Martin Raggett and Paul Cooper, and special guests Luke Steele on the cello and Helen Anderson doing the backing vocals. First track on this one is called Chain Smoking Away to Your Heart. Great opening riffs here. It's a very short 4.5 minute track, but it's got lots of epic guitar riffs, good singing, solid drumming, good solid track to start the album. Then we get a track called 12. Good track again. There is not a bad track on this album. You get a lovely sort of drumming on this. You got some John coming in with some booming guitar riffs and solo. Fantastic little track. Then we get the title track, Glitter. Good track on. This is another good track. It's one of my favourite songs on here. Great vocal. It's got such a catchy tune to it. Wonderful stuff. Then we get Beautiful Sun. A really nice song this is. The guitar work from John is fantastic. The harmonies are fantastic. Again, one of my favourite songs off the album. Then we get Parachute. I love this. This is my favourite track. It's got that really sort of chunky riff from John. The keyboards are pretty good on this. I just think it's a solid track. Then we get Don't Say. This has got a quirky keyboard on it. It really adds to this track. It's got a great vocal from John as well. He's not just a guitar player, he can sing as well. It's a really strong track. Then we get Time After Time. It is a cover of the Cyndi Lauper song, and they do a really good version of it. Does it justice. Fantastic stuff. Then we get Hate My Radio, one of the heaviest songs on the album. Oh, the guitar is brilliant. Great rock track, really. Brilliant stuff. And then we get In Between. I like this track, solid. as I said, they're all good tracks. This one I'm not as keen on as some of the others, but it's still a really good track. Then we get Cut the Wire. No, we don't. Yes, we do. Cut the Wire. I do like this. John's guitar work is really good on here. Lots of delicate touches and ambient sounds. Absolutely great track. Fantastic melody on this one. Missing. This one starts like a Smith song, and then it comes into this proggy sound. It's absolutely brilliant track. I love that track. Something, great bass line here from Martin Raggett, and then you get this lovely solo from John on the top of it. Lovely track. Giving It Away. One of the weaker tracks on here. I don't dislike it, but it just hasn't got the same pow as some of the others. And it does go on a little bit too long for me. It's 7.5 minutes long. It really needs to only be about 3 or 4 minutes. The last 2 or 3 minutes sort of get lost. Yeah. And then the last track on here is called Suffocate. Very atmospheric, a modern day progressive rock track. Delicate keyboards, lovely touches on the guitar from John Mitchell. Really, really good. Difficult to rank 2 albums, but I don't dislike this album at all. But for me, it's got 1 or 2 tracks that are weaker than on the debut album. So I'm still going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5 because I do love this album. Okay, then coming in at number 1 is their debut album from 1999, and it's called Neon. And on here there's just John Mitchell at the and on guitar, keyboards, lead and backing vocals, Martin Raggett on the bass, Paul Cooper on drums, and this has got Guy Haskell on violin and Barbara Wagner on backing vocals. First track on this one is called Quietly. Good track. Another great riff here. Paul Cooper's drumming on this. It's really good. It's got that real post-punk feel to it with a modern twist. Very, very good track. Then we get a track called Mary Jane. Great little rocker here. Sharp, punchy track. Great guitar work from John. The drumming from Paul Cooper is awesome, and it's got a really good guitar solo from John Mitchell, one of his best. Then we get Aeroplanes. Solid track, very psychedelic in places. Great drumming again, some super riffs. Fading Out. The start to this is amazing. The drumming, them little guitar bits. One of my favourite tracks by the Urbane. And this is actually the first track I ever heard by the band, and it was on remember the Classic Rock album magazine. When they first come out, they released little CDs with lots of tracks on, and this is on the Classic Cuts Volume 4, and I love this. Still remains one of my favourites. But my favourite track is actually called Loop. Some of John's best guitar work with the Urbane. It's just wonderful. And then you've got a great bass line from Martin as well that really does add to it. Great little track. Immaculate. Again, this is one of the weaker tracks on the album. Although I don't dislike it, it's one of the tracks that I don't like. It's like Ghost going round in circles, you know, the sound that Ghosts do. It's alright. I don't dislike it. I've never skipped it, but there are better tracks on the album. Wide Awake, I love this. It starts off gentle and it builds up. The guitar gets deeper and sharper. Great track. Staring at the Sun, another great song. Some great riffs and licks from John. A lot of distorted guitar on this. Love the solo as well. Then we get the title track Neon. Love this. It's moody. The bass line is quite dark sounding. Everything sort of revolves around this bass line. Some of the lovely delicate touches on the guitar from John. It's a terrific track. Then we get Static. I love the harmonies in this one. It's very Britpop in places with an added twist. Solo is fantastic. Try, and in brackets, A Letter to a Friend. Real good rock up. The heaviest track on the album. Solid stuff. Then we get The Tie. Now I love this track. Again, one of my favourites. I like how this one starts nice and gentle and builds up and builds up. Top, classic prog way of writing. Start gentle and build to this crescendo. And it's got a mind-blowing guitar solo from John Mitchell, which is just superb. Great album. From hearing that fading out on that little compilation CD, I just thought, God, this is good, and what a good guitar player. And that's when I started to look more into John Mitchell, and I've been listening to them since. Brought the album. I never regretted buying this album on one track. It's heavy. It's much heavier than Glitter, and that's probably why it's my favourite one. And it's got some of John's great guitar work on it. It's a fantastic album, and I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. So if you're a John Mitchell fan and you've never heard this, go and check it out. Or if you've never heard of the band or John Mitchell, go and check it out as well. They're on YouTube, so you can listen to them on there. Okay, that's all for part 1. Next week, part 2. Although we have ranked the Arena studio albums, we'll be looking at the live albums of Arena next week, part 2 of the John Mitchell story. I'll be back later. Got a great little jazz fusion album in the classic album. We're going to look at a bit of Frank Zappa, and we're going to look at the album Hot Rats. So join me for that later. Bye for now.